Good morning or good afternoon. Excuse me, everybody. For this video, you're going to be looking at Beyonce and Kendrick Lamar's Freedom. If you haven't heard the song, we'll get into it a little bit in a second. But for now, let's start with your jump start. You can go ahead and write this in your notebook under the classwork section. The question is, who is your favorite artist and what does this artist write about that attracts you to them? So what messages does this artist send, or what do they talk about in their music? So go ahead and jot this down in your notebook. Our daily focus questions are: how does what Kendrick Lamar and Beyonce say about freedom relate to African American people, and how are Claudette Colvin, Malcolm X, Rosa Parks, and Martin Luther King's efforts reflected in art today? So I want you to take a second and set up a dialectical journal. If you don't know how to do this, the setup video is in the drive, so you can go check that out and then come back and write these questions in your dialectical journal. You don't have to answer them just yet. Just go ahead and set up your dialectical journal, then write these questions. You'll come back to them a little later. So now you're going to watch the Freedom performance video from Beyonce and Kendrick Lamar. And as you watch this video, I want you to think about what message the artists are trying to convey, or what message they're trying to send to whoever is watching the video or watching the performance. So go ahead, and the video's in the drive. You can go ahead and watch the video, then come back to this question, and I want you to answer it in your notebook on the next page. So not the page that you just set up for your dialectical journal. Just flip the page or write on to the next page the answer to this question. What visual message do you think the artists are trying to convey? Okay. So our skills for today are figurative language, themes in poetry, and cross-text connections. And we're going to get there in this pathway by doing the following. You're going to watch the pre-reading video and answer questions in your notebook. Read the poem and use the questions to guide your annotations. So there are questions on the side of the poem, which is actually the lyrics to Freedom by Beyonce and Kendrick Lamar. After you read and annotate the poem, you're going to complete a TP cast for the poem. And the criteria for success for the TB cast is also in the drive. So you can go back and look at that and come back if need be. Then you're going to, again, watch the dialectical journal setup and set your notebook up to answer the DFQs. So before you go ahead and read and annotate the poem, I want to give you a little bit of background information on some things that you're going to see in the poem. So, I have it right here. The first thing I want to point out is 40 acres, give me mine. So Kendrick Lamar says this a few times, and some of us have heard the term 40 acres and a mule. Oh. We've heard 40 acres and a mule, and that comes from back right after slavery was ending. It was promised to slaves that they were going to get land. So the definition is, slaves were promised reparations in the fashion of land, 40 acres, and a mule, which was used to transport goods or to help out in farming. So slaves were promised this land and the mule, and they actually never got it. So this land was talked about. It's still talked about a lot. You'll hear people, black people in particular, say, we never got our reparations, or where my 40 acres and a mule. This is what they're referring to, the land that was promised to slaves and they never got it. Something else I want to point out is Hail Mary, which is a prayer to the Virgin Mary predominantly used by Roman Catholics. And he says this in the poem right here, 10 Hail Marys, I meditate for practice. So again, a Hail Mary is a prayer that's said to the Virgin Mary. And when Kendrick is saying it here, or when other people say it, out of the context of being in the church saying a Hail Mary prayer. They're saying it in the sense of trying to do something at the last minute to get what they want. So, for example, football players will do a Hail Mary pass, and this happens like the last few seconds of a game. They'll throw the ball down the field. It's typically pretty far, about 65 yards typically. So they'll throw the football, and the hope is to get that touchdown in the last few seconds. So a Hail Mary prayer, in the context of what Kendrick Lamar was saying, is like, I really need this, so I'm going to say a Hail Mary really quickly, or I'm going to try and do everything I can right now and just hope for the best, right? So right here is a picture of what looks to be, I'm going to assume, is a slave and working on a farm with his mule, depicting 40 Acres and a Mule. And also, if you've heard of Spike Lee, he has a film company actually called 40 Acres and a Mule Filmworks. This is Spike Lee. He has a few movies that you may have heard of, like Do the Right Thing or School Days. School Days is actually a good video that depicts a lot of the conversation on light skin versus dark skin, or good hair versus bad hair, if y'all have heard of those videos. So now I want you to go back, and you're going to read the poem and answer the guided questions for your annotations. And once you've done that, you're going to go ahead and complete the TP cast, which, if you don't have it in front of you already, raise your hand and myself or Mr. Mendoza will get it to you. And then once you've read the poem, completed your annotations, completed the TP cast, then you're going to go back to the daily focus questions that you already set up in your dialectical journal, and you're going to go ahead and answer these at this time. So if you have any questions, go ahead and raise your hand, and one of us will come and answer them for you. If not, go ahead and finish up this pathway.